Have you ever noticed the strongest people in the room are usually the most ignored? Not because they are weak, not because they are invisible, because everyone has become comfortable leaning on their strength. They see your strength and they assume you'll be fine. They see your smile and they assume you don't need help. They see your consistency and they assume you don't get tired. But hear me today. Strength does not mean you don't feel. Strength does not mean you don't break. Strength does not mean you don't bleed on the inside. Some of you became strong because life gave you no other option. You didn't wake up one day and choose strength. Strength was forced on you by pressure, by loss, by responsibility, by survival. And because you carried it well, people forgot you were human. But God sees what people overlook. God hears the prayers you never speak out loud. God knows the weight you carry with a straight face. You are not ignored by heaven. You are not forgotten by the one who created your strength. Today, I came to remind every strong soul in this room, just because you can handle it does not mean you were meant to handle it alone. There comes a moment in life when you realize that being strong has quietly become your identity, not because you wanted it to be, but because people around you decided it for you. Somewhere along the way, your strength stopped being admired and started being assumed. People no longer ask how you are really doing. They don't pause to check your tone, your eyes, your energy. They look at you and think they can handle it. And because you have handled it for so long, they believe you will always handle it. But strength was never meant to replace care. Strength was never meant to cancel compassion. Strength was never meant to erase the need to be seen as human. In daily life, this shows up in small, quiet ways. You are the one everyone calls when there is a problem. Family problems, work problems, emotional problems, financial stress. You are the one who listens, who advises, who calms situations down. When someone is breaking, they come to you. When someone is confused, they lean on you. And you show up. You show up even when you are tired. You show up even when you are hurting. You show up even when you wish someone would show up for you. Over time, people stop asking if you are okay, because they are used to you being the one who makes everything okay for everyone else. You become the strong one at work, the one who can take extra pressure, the one who can stay late, the one who can handle more responsibility. So they give you more, not because you asked for it, but because you proved you could carry it. And while others are checked on, supported, given grace when they are overwhelmed, you are expected to push through. Your exhaustion is called professionalism. Your stress is called strength. Your silence is mistaken for peace. But inside, you may be running on empty, smiling through weight that no one else can see. In families, it looks like being the emotional pillar. You are the one who keeps things together. When others fall apart, you hold steady. When there is conflict, you are expected to be mature. When there is pain, you are expected to be understanding. You become the emotional adult in the room, even when you are hurting just as much as everyone else. And slowly, your heart learns a dangerous lesson that your value comes from how much you can carry, not from who you are. But God never designed your strength to become your cage. God gave you strength as a gift, not as a sentence. Strength was meant to help you stand, not to make you invisible. Yet many strong people suffer quietly because they believe their pain is less important than everyone else's. They think others need more help than I do, so they push their feelings aside. They swallow their tears. They postpone their healing. They become experts at being okay on the outside while breaking on the inside. God sees the difference between strength and suffering. God sees when your smile is a mask. God sees when your "I'm fine" is just a way to survive the day. God sees when you are tired of being the strong one, but don't know how to be anything else. And God is not impressed by your ability to hide your pain. God is moved by your humanity. God does not ask you to be a hero. God invites you to be honest. In everyday moments, this truth can change everything. It can look like allowing yourself to say, "I'm not okay today." It can look like letting someone else carry you for once. It can look like setting a boundary at work instead of always saying yes. It can look like telling your family, "I need support too." These small decisions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom. They are signs that you understand your strength does not cancel your need for care. When you stop pretending that being strong means being unbreakable, something powerful happens. You give others permission to see the real you, not just the helper, not just the fixer. No, not just the reliable one, but the human one, the one who feels, the one who gets tired, the one who also needs encouragement. And when people see your humanity, they may finally learn how to love you in a deeper way. God is teaching many strong people this season that being seen is not a threat to your strength. Being honest is not a failure. Letting yourself be checked on does not make you less powerful. It makes you more whole. Because real strength is not pretending you don't hurt. Real strength is having the courage to admit when you do, you were never meant to be strong alone. You were never meant to carry everything without support. God did not give you strength so the world could forget you have a heart. God gave you strength so you could survive, yes, but also so you could live, feel rest, and be cared for. So if today you feel overlooked, if you feel like no one checks on you, if you feel like your strength has made you invisible, remember this: God sees you fully. Not just your ability, not just your endurance, but your heart. And the same God who gave you strength is also inviting you to receive care, because you are not only strong, you are worthy of being supported, seen, and loved. There are people who are strong because they trained for it. And then there are people who are strong because life gave them no other option. You didn't wake up one day and decide to be tough. You didn't sign up for the pressure. You didn't ask for the weight. But circumstances placed it on your shoulders, and you learned how to stand under it. Your strength was not a personality trait at first. It was a survival response. It was born in moments where quitting was not an option, where breaking down was a luxury you could not afford, where someone had to hold it together, and that someone became you. In real life, this looks like being forced to grow up too fast. It looks like taking responsibility before you were ready. It looks like being the one who had to figure things out with little guidance. When others had support, you had to become your own support. When others had a safety net, you learned how to walk the tightrope alone. Over time, what started as survival slowly became your identity. People now see you as strong, but they don't see the story behind it. They don't see the nights you cried quietly. They don't see the fear you swallow. They don't see the moments you wish someone would rescue you, but no one came. You learned strength in the middle of storms, financial pressure, emotional loss, family struggles, unexpected responsibility. You didn't get a warning. Life didn't send a message asking if you were ready. It just happened. And in those moments, something inside you rose up because you felt powerful, but because you refused to be destroyed. That kind of strength is not glamorous. It is gritty. It is quiet. It is built in the dark. When no one is clapping, when no one is cheering, when no one even knows what you are carrying in daily life, people often admire the result but ignore the cost. They say, "You're so strong," without realizing strength came with tears. They say you always handle things without realizing handling things meant sacrificing your own peace. They say you don't need help without realizing you became independent because depending on others once disappointed you. Your strength was shaped by moments when you had to choose between falling apart and pushing forward. And you pushed forward even when your heart was heavy. There is a special kind of tiredness that comes from being strong out of necessity. It is not just physical tired. It is emotional tired. It is the tired that comes from always being alert, always being responsible, always being the one who has to think ahead. You don't just carry your own life. You carry the weight of what could go wrong. You plan, you prepare, you protect. You become the pillar because you learned what it feels like when the pillar collapses. God sees that your strength was built in survival mode. God knows you didn't get strong because life was kind to you. You got strong because you had to be. God watched you stand up in seasons where others would have given up. God watched you keep going when your heart was tired. God watched you learn lessons the hard way. And God is not asking you to pretend it was easy. God honors the process that shaped you even when it hurt. In everyday situations, this shows up when you don't complain, even when things are unfair. You tell yourself, I've handled worse. You minimize your pain because you compare it to past struggles. You say, I'll manage, because managing became your default setting. But just because you survived worse does not mean you are not allowed to acknowledge that this still hurts. Survival strength can make you emotionally numb if you are not careful. It can teach you to keep moving without stopping to heal. God is inviting you to understand something powerful. The strength that saved you in one season does not have to imprison you in the next. What kept you alive is not always what will make you whole. There was a time when you needed to be tough just to make it through, but there is also a time when you are allowed to soften, a time when you are allowed to rest. A time when you are allowed to say, I don't have to fight everything anymore. In real life, this might look like letting someone help you without feeling weak. It might look like asking questions instead of pretending you have all the answers. It might look like admitting you are tired instead of pushing through just to prove you can. These are not signs that you are losing your strength. These are signs that your strength is evolving. You are moving from survival strength to sustainable strength. God never intended for you to live your whole life in emergency mode. You were not created to always be on guard. You were not created to always carry pressure. You were not created to always be the one who holds everything together. There are seasons where survival is necessary, but there are also seasons where healing is required. God is gently teaching many strong people that it is safe now to breathe. It is safe now to rest. It is safe now to let your guard down a little. Your strength was forged in fire, and that is something to honor. But you are more than what you survived. You are not just a product of your pain. You are a person with a future that does not have to be ruled by past pressure. God is not just proud of you for surviving. God desires for you to thrive. Not just to endure, to enjoy, not just to make it, but to live with peace. So when people call you strong, remember this, your strength has a story. It was built in moments no one saw. It was shaped by choices no one applauded. And God sees every step of that journey. The same God who gave you strength to survive is now offering you the grace to live beyond survival. You don't have to stay in survival mode forever. You were strong because you had to be, but now you are allowed to be strong in a new way. A way that includes rest, healing, and peace. When you become the person everyone can rely on, something strange begins to happen. Your reliability slowly turns into invisibility. At first, people appreciate you. They thank you. They notice your effort. But over time, your consistency becomes expected. Your presence becomes assumed. Your help becomes normal. And without realizing it, people stop seeing how much you are actually giving because you give it so well. Being reliable is a beautiful quality, but it can quietly cost you your visibility. In daily life, this shows up in simple, familiar ways. At work, you are the one who always meets deadlines, the one who fixes mistakes without complaining, the one who steps in when someone else drops the ball. So when something needs to be done, your name is the first to come up, not because you volunteered, but because you are known for handling things. Over time, no one asks if you are overwhelmed. They just add more to your plate. Your reliability becomes their comfort, even if it becomes your burden. In families, you are the one who holds things together. You remember birthdays. You manage problems. You calm arguments. You take responsibility when things go wrong. You become the emotional glue. And because you are always there, people forget that you also get tired. They forget that you also have limits. They forget that you also need care. They see the role you play, but they forget the person you are. There is a quiet loneliness that comes with being reliable. People come to you when they need something, but they don't always come to you just to check on you. Conversations become centered on what you can provide, not on how you are feeling. Your phone rings when there is a problem, but it stays silent when you need encouragement. You become surrounded by people, yet still feel unseen, not because people are cruel, but because they have grown used to your strength and dependability. God sees this pattern clearly. God knows how reliability can turn into responsibility overload. God sees how your willingness to serve can turn into others taking you for granted. God is not blind to the moments when you feel invisible, even while being essential. Just because people stop noticing does not mean your effort is small. Just because people assume you will always show up does not mean it costs you nothing. In everyday situations, you may find yourself saying yes even when you want to say no. Not because you have the energy, but because you have the reputation. You don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want to let things fall apart. So you carry more. You stretch yourself thinner. You tell yourself, it's fine, I can handle it. But inside, there's a quiet voice that says, I wish someone would notice how much I'm doing. That voice is not weakness. That voice is your humanity asking to be seen. Being reliable can train people to overlook your limits. They forget that you are not a machine. They forget that you also have bad days. They forget that you also need grace. You become so good at being there for others that others forget to be there for you. And slowly, you may start to believe that your worth is tied to how useful you are. If you are not helping, you feel guilty. If you are not available, you feel like you are failing. This is how reliability can quietly become a trap. God never designed your value to be based on how much you can do. God values you for who you are, not just for what you provide. God does not see you as a tool. God sees you as a soul, and God is calling many reliable people into a new understanding. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to say, I can't carry this right now. In daily life, this might look like setting small boundaries. It might look like letting someone else handle something, even if you know you could do it better. It might look like not answering every call immediately. It might look like choosing rest instead of always choosing responsibility. These choices can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you have built your identity around being dependable. But discomfort does not mean disobedience to your own well-being. Sometimes it means growth. God is not asking you to stop being reliable. God is asking you to stop being invisible. There is a difference. Reliability is a strength. Invisibility is a burden. You can be dependable and still be seen. You can be helpful and still be honored. You can be supportive and still be supported. God desires balance, not burnout. God desires contribution, not self-erasure. There is also a deeper lesson in this. When you always step in, you may unintentionally teach others that they never have to grow. When you always fix things, others may never learn how to carry their own weight. By allowing others to step up, you are not being selfish. You are creating space for shared responsibility. You are allowing relationships to become more equal, more healthy, more honest. God is gently reminding you that being reliable does not mean being replaceable. Just because you can do everything does not mean you should. Your presence matters more than your productivity. Your heart matters more than your output. God does not want you to disappear behind your duties. God wants you to be known, valued, and appreciated as a whole person. So if today you feel invisible because you are always the one who shows up, remember this: God sees every unseen effort. God honors every quiet sacrifice, and God is inviting you to step out of the shadows of your own reliability. You do not have to earn love by being useful. You are worthy of care even when you are not carrying everyone else. Your reliability is a gift, but you are the treasure. There is a special kind of exhaustion that comes from always being the one who carries others. You become the safe place for people, the strong shoulder, the calm voice, the steady presence. When others are overwhelmed, they lean on you. When others are confused, they call you. When others are breaking, they come to you for strength, and you give it. You give advice, you give time, you give emotional energy, you give encouragement, you give solutions. But in the middle of all that giving, a quiet question begins to form in your heart: who carries you? In daily life, this often looks like being everyone's support system. Friends call you late at night to talk about their problems. Family members lean on you for decisions. Co-workers come to you when they are stressed. You become the emotional container for everyone else's struggles. You listen, you absorb, you comfort. And even when you are tired, you make space for them. Over time, you become so used to carrying others that you forget what it feels like to be carried yourself. There is a difference between being strong and being supported. Many strong people have never truly experienced consistent support. They learned early that if something needed to be done, they had to do it themselves. If something needed to be fixed, they had to fix it. If something needed to be handled, they had to handle it. So when life brought people into their world, they naturally became the helper, not the helped, the giver, not the receiver. And while giving can be beautiful, never receiving can become heavy. God sees how much you pour out. God sees how you show up for others even when you are running low. God sees how you carry emotional weight that does not even belong to you. God sees how you pray for others, think about others, worry about others. And God is asking you a gentle but powerful question: when will you allow me and others to carry you too? In everyday moments, this can look like brushing off your own needs. Someone asks how you are and you say, "I'm fine," even when you are not. You don't want to burden anyone. You don't want to seem weak. You don't want to take up space with your own struggles. So you minimize, you downplay, you move on. But inside your heart is quietly saying, "I wish someone would ask me deeper. I wish someone would really see me." Being the carrier can make you feel strong on the outside, but empty on the inside. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone, because no one is holding your emotional weight the way you hold theirs. You may laugh with others but cry alone. You may encourage others but feel discouraged yourself. You may give wisdom to others but feel unsure about your own path. This is not because you are broken. It is because you are human. God never designed you to be a one-way giver. Even the strongest need a place to rest. Even the wisest need someone to listen to them. Even the most stable need a shoulder sometimes. God is not glorified by your burnout. God is not impressed by your emotional exhaustion. God is pleased when you recognize your need for support and allow space for restoration. In real life, this might look like opening up to one trusted person. Not everyone needs to know everything, but someone should know something. It might look like saying, "I'm not okay today," instead of always saying, "I'm good." It might look like asking for help with something you usually handle alone. These small acts of vulnerability are not weakness. They are acts of courage. They are signs that you are choosing wholeness over image. God is also teaching strong people that receiving is just as spiritual as giving. Allowing yourself to be helped does not make you less valuable. It honors the design of connection. You were created for relationship, not isolation. You were created to share burdens. Carry them all alone. When you let others carry you, you are not failing, you are participating in balance. There is also healing in letting go of control. Many carriers struggle to trust others to hold things the way they do. You think, if I don't handle it, it won't be done right. But God is inviting you to release some of that weight. Not everything has to be on your shoulders. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every situation requires your emotional energy. Some things are meant to be shared. Some things are meant to be released. When you finally allow yourself to be carried, even for a moment, you may feel uncomfortable. You may feel exposed. You may feel unsure. But with that discomfort comes relief. The kind of relief that reminds you what it feels like to breathe, what it feels like to rest, what it feels like to not be the strong one for 5 minutes. That relief is not weakness. That relief is restoration. God is not taking your strength away. God is teaching you how to use it wisely. Strength does not mean carrying everything. Strength also means knowing when to put something down. Strength also means trusting that you are allowed to need. Strength also means believing that your value is not in how much you hold, but in who you are. So if you have been carrying everyone else, hear this clearly. You deserve to be carried too. You deserve to be supported. You deserve to be listened to. You deserve to rest your heart. God is inviting you into a season where you are not just the lifter, but also the one being lifted. Not just the helper, but also the one being helped. Not just the strong one, but also the cared for one. And in that balance, you will discover a deeper, healthier, more peaceful kind of strength. There are many people who look calm on the outside but are exhausted on the inside. They move through life with a steady face, a controlled tone, and a composed attitude. To the world, it looks like peace. To others, it looks like emotional maturity. To some, it looks like strength. But for many strong people, that calm is not peace. It is survival. It is a learned behavior. It is a protective shield. It is a way to function in life without falling apart in front of everyone. In daily life, survival silence often begins in moments where expressing emotion did not feel safe. Maybe when you were younger, you learned that showing pain made things worse. Maybe your feelings were dismissed. Maybe you were told to be strong when you really needed to be held. Over time, you trained yourself to keep things inside. You learned how to swallow tears. You learned how to smile through discomfort. You learned how to keep moving even when your heart was heavy. What started as a coping skill slowly became your default way of living. At work, this looks like staying professional even when you are overwhelmed. You don't want to be seen as weak, so you push through. You meet deadlines while feeling drained. You respond politely while feeling stressed. You don't complain because you don't want to be labeled difficult, so you keep everything inside. You function, you perform, you deliver. But functioning is not the same as healing. Just because you are still moving does not mean you are not hurting. In relationships, survival silence can look like avoiding deep conversations about your feelings. You listen to others, you support others, you give advice, but when it comes to your own emotions, you minimize them. You say, it's nothing. You say, I'm fine. You change the subject, not because you have nothing to say, but because you are used to being the strong one. You are used to being the listener, not the one who needs to be heard. This kind of silence can slowly disconnect you from yourself. When you don't name your pain, you start to lose touch with it. Not because it is gone, but because you have buried it. Buried pain does not disappear. It waits. It shows up in exhaustion. It shows up in irritability. It shows up in lack of motivation. It shows up in feeling numb. You may not cry anymore, not because you are healed, but because you are tired of crying alone. God sees the difference between peace and shutdown. God knows when your calm is actually a defense. God knows when your silence is not strength, but a sign that you have been carrying too much for too long. God does not desire for you to live emotionally locked up. God created you with feelings on purpose. Your emotions are not a weakness. They are a signal. They are a language of the soul. They are a way your heart communicates what it needs. In everyday moments, this might look like telling yourself others have it worse, so you don't allow yourself to feel your own pain. You compare, you minimize, you justify. You say, I should be grateful. And while gratitude is powerful, it should not be used to silence real hurt. You can be thankful and still be hurting. You can be blessed and still be tired. You can be strong and still need space to feel. God is inviting many strong people into a deeper level of honesty, not with everyone, but with someone. Not to complain, but to heal. Healing begins when you give yourself permission to feel what you have been avoiding. When you say, this actually hurt me. When you admit, I'm tired. When you allow yourself to say, I'm not okay today. These words are not signs of defeat. They're the first steps toward freedom. Survival silence can also make you feel isolated even when you are not alone. People may be around you, but no one really knows what is happening inside you. You may laugh in groups and cry in private. You may celebrate others and feel empty yourself. This emotional loneliness is heavy, not because people don't care, but because you have not allowed yourself to be seen. God is not asking you to expose your heart to everyone. God is asking you to stop hiding it from yourself. There is a difference between protecting your peace and suppressing your pain. Protecting your peace means choosing healthy boundaries. Suppressing your pain means pretending nothing hurts. One leads to wholeness, the other leads to burnout. God desires you to have real peace, the kind that comes from releasing what you have been holding, not the kind that comes from locking it inside. In real life, this might look like journaling your feelings instead of pushing them away. It might look like talking to one trusted person instead of carrying everything alone. It might look like taking a break instead of forcing yourself to keep going. These small choices create space for healing. They tell your soul, you are allowed to feel. They tell your heart, you are allowed to rest. God does not want you to just survive emotionally. God wants you to live fully. God wants you to experience joy, not just manage pain. God wants you to feel peace, not just look calm. God wants you to be whole, not just functional. Your silence may have helped you survive a season, but God is gently leading you into a season where you don't have to hide anymore. So if your calm has been your survival tool, hear this, you are allowed to lay it down sometimes. You are allowed to be honest about what hurts. You are allowed to feel without guilt. God is not disappointed in your emotions. God is present in them. And when you stop confusing survival with peace, you open the door to a deeper healing. The kind that doesn't just help you get through life, but helps you truly live it. There is a deep misunderstanding in many people's minds that rest is a reward for weakness, or that stopping means you are failing. For strong people, rest can feel uncomfortable. It can feel lazy. It can feel undeserved. You have been trained by life to keep moving, to keep carrying, to keep pushing. So when your body and your mind ask for a pause, you sometimes ignore them. You tell yourself, I'll rest later. You tell yourself, others need me. You tell yourself, I can't slow down now, but God never designed strength to run without renewal. Even the strongest structure will crack if it is never given time to breathe. In daily life, this shows up as constant business. You wake up tired, but you still get up. You go through your routine on low energy. You drink more caffeine. You scroll to distract your mind. You stay up late even though your body is asking for sleep. You tell yourself you will catch up later, but later never comes. You live in a cycle of tiredness that feels normal, but it is not healthy. Over time, you forget what true rest even feels like. Many strong people feel guilty when they rest. If you are not doing something, you feel unproductive. If you take a break, you feel like you are falling behind. If you say no, you feel like you are letting someone down. So you push past your limits. You treat your exhaustion like a badge of honor. You say, I'm just busy. But inside, you are drained. God does not celebrate your burnout. God values your well-being more than your business. Rest is not weakness. Rest is wisdom. Rest is how you protect what God has given you. Your energy is a gift. Your mind is a gift. Your body is a gift. When you constantly drain them without refilling, you are not being strong, you are being unsustainable. God is not impressed by how much you can endure. God is concerned with how well you can live. In everyday situations, this might look like skipping meals, skipping sleep, skipping personal time, all in the name of responsibility. You take care of everyone else, but you forget to take care of yourself. You tell yourself you don't have time for rest, but the truth is rest is what gives you time. When you are rested, you think clearer, you respond calmer, you make better decisions. Rest does not slow you down in the long run. It actually helps you go further. God created rhythms for a reason. Life is not meant to be constant output. There is a time to work and a time to pause. There is a time to give and a time to receive. There is a time to push and a time to breathe. When you ignore these rhythms, you go against your own design. And when you go against your design, something always pays the price: your peace, your health, your joy, or your relationships. In real life, you may notice that when you are tired, you become more irritated. Small things bother you. You have less patience. You feel emotionally sensitive. You snap at people you love, not because you are a bad person, because you are exhausted. Rest would not just help your body. It would help your attitude. It would help your relationships. It would help your emotional balance. God is inviting strong people to redefine what strength really looks like. Strength is not always pushing. Strength is also pausing. Strength is not always holding on. Strength is also letting go. Strength is not always saying yes. Strength is also knowing when to say no. These choices do not make you less capable. They make you more whole. In everyday practice, rest can look very simple. It can look like going to bed earlier. It can look like taking a walk without your phone. It can look like sitting quietly and breathing. It can look like doing something you enjoy without feeling guilty. It can look like saying, I will deal with this tomorrow. These small acts of rest are not selfish. They are necessary. God does not want you to run on empty. God wants you to live from a place of fullness. When you are rested, you give from overflow instead of from exhaustion. You help from a place of strength instead of from pressure. You serve from a place of peace instead of from obligation. This is the difference between healthy strength and harmful endurance. Many strong people fear that if they stop, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, you are not the center of the universe. God is. The world will not collapse if you take a break. In fact, sometimes God allows you to rest so you can see that not everything depends on you. This is humbling, but it is also freeing. It reminds you that you are responsible, but you are not responsible for everything. God is teaching you that rest is an act of trust. When you rest, you are saying, I trust that things can continue without me controlling everything. When you rest, you are saying, I trust that my value is not in my productivity. When you rest, You are saying, I trust that I am allowed to be human. So if you have been pushing yourself beyond your limits, hear this clearly. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to rest without guilt. Your strength is not measured by how tired you are. Your strength is measured by how well you care for what you have been given. God did not create you to burn out. God created you to live with balance, peace, and renewal. And when you choose rest, you are not stepping back. You are positioning yourself to move forward with greater clarity, greater peace, and greater power.